Hi, everyone. It's very nice to be here, be back to Vue.js London for the second time. And how are you doing today? Well, I'm glad, I'm very happy. And I'm even more happy if this conference is going to be in person in London. Either way, today we're going to talk about state management for UI in Vue. And that's not about Vuex or Redux or anything similar. Well, instead, we're going to talk about App State for Vue and for UI. But right before that, just a little bit about myself. My name is Maya, as you also saw that. And you can find me on Maya Shavin, and Maya Shavin on Twitter, on GitHub, and also on my website, mayashavin.com. I wrote articles about JavaScript and about front-end development in general. So feel free to check it out. Okay, so as we all know, Vue 3 were released last year, and it's become a very, very promising update ever since Vue 2, and we all really like how it works. I hope that by now you already have a chance to try it out or even migrate your applications from Vue 2 to Vue 3. But either way, if not, then definitely you should check it out. Anyway, so what the main things about Vue 3? Vue 3 have a lot of new features and breaking changes, of course, as always. And one of the nice things about Vue 3 is composition API, right? Composition APIs is a significant improvement. It allows us to actually have more options and more control on how we want to build the component rather than the default option template that give very limit in allowing us to write in a component in Vue. Now we can write more now we can write more flexible and more dynamic components such as functional component easier. And for example, let's say if we have a component that what it does is just render an image when you click a button. This is how you're going to write it in Vue 3 with composition API, of course. So first of all, we have a setup method in the template, and now we can set a local state by using ref. It's similar to use state of React. So we can get a kitty with the ref with the default value is empty, and then we can assign a function to trigger when the user click on the button. To update this local state to the image that we want once it's fetched the image successfully. And then we return a render function, which will be written in JSX if you want to. So it's very similar to React in a way. So it makes React developer will be more easier to adapt to the new Vue. And the render components will render the components, the image component we want according to the local state and attach the event handler. Simple, right? Very straightforward. The output will be click, get the kitty, that's it. Okay, nothing very complex here, nothing at all. But let's say if the product managers now decide to come and tell you, hey, when we click on the image is still loading, but the button is still there. And user can click it multiple times. What we're going to do? We need to handle it by disable the button while the image is loading. Or if the image is not loading, it's in loading, we need to show the loading state, because let's say a big image will take a long time to load, right? Or what happened if the image couldn't load for some reason, someone removed the image from the server, we need to display the proper error state for the image, and more and more. So at that time, we will probably end up with from a simple code like that with 20 lines of code to a component with more like 10 more, 12 more lines of code like this, just to handle two use cases, loading and error message, the very basic one. And Then you also, what happens if you want to add more, let's say inloading 20%, inloading 40%, display a different animation effect, transition effect, different display a different error state when error message, when the user, let's say the server return 500 for something for the user. More and more use case adding, more and more problem will start to happen. And unfortunately, this is very, very common. We start with something super small, and we added and added and added more and more on top of this. That is called, let's say, we build a component in the set of basic actions. And whenever we want something, we want to add some new feature, okay, cool, it works. We just need to develop something that works, simple. It's nothing critical here. But then when we want to add some new features, we need to add more, another layer on top of batch, on top of it with new actions. And because there's now no code that is perfect, we still have bug fixes, we fix it on top of the current component. And then new actions will also cause some bugs. We still need to fix some bugs. And another feature come up, another bug fixes need to be handled, and so on and so forth. This approach is called a bottom-up approach. Unfortunately, this approach is very common, like we say, and it's not that bad. It works most of the time because it allows us to develop something fast, quick, and maybe dirty or maybe clean. But along the time, it's proved to be very, very complicated. For example, it's hard to maintain. If you have a component that become growing with more functionality adding, more functionality adding, and different more code adding, it's become hard to understand, hard to maintain. And then because it's hard to maintain, it's hard to test. How we're going to make sure that what we test, what we wrote, will not break something somewhere that we don't know, we don't understand. I say sometimes we have a component that really long, then we have to read. But then if it's too long, we may not be able to understand all the use cases we're handling. And because of that, if something happens, we will not be able to understand whether we cover the test or where the step happened. That's hard to understand. And at some point, we will get to this one. And this is not on our side, developer side. It's actually happened on the client side and make the clients very, very upset. And that is why we're talking about finite state machine. That's our topic today. Yeah. Or we can call it deterministic finite automata. Cool. So what does that mean by definition of finite state machine? Oh, well, according to Wiki, we have like this. A deterministic finite automaton is represented formally by phi to blah, 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 blah. Honestly, just like the name, don't bother. The definition is definitely, absolutely not understandable. Well, at least it's for me. I'm not sure about everyone. Maybe someone will be smarter than me to understand it. It's not easy to understand. That's one thing. Even if you study computer science, which I did, it's still not understandable. So forget about it. Let's make it simple. In short, deterministic finite automaton is actually represented by a sequence where you have one initial state and a number of finite number of state, which means you don't have infinite number. You have a finite number of state. And then because you have finite number of state, you have a finite number of events that connect these states together and create from here a transition map that triggered by the event to move from one state to another. And so an example of finite state machine that I can think of, and you probably already know, that is the fetch event, fetch sequence, which we have one idle state. When we click on fetch, it will move to idles to loading. And then when it finishes loading with the result, it will move to success, or if we check, it will move to failure, and depend on the configuration, it can go back to retry, go back to the loading state, and retry again. And this is what we call state machine. So you may wonder by now, that's a state machine. So what's the relationship with state machine and UI? Since it's talking about fetch, it's not about UI, right? UI development is about UI. It's nothing related to fetch some data in the background. Am I right? Well, to be honest, let's take a look. This is the user flow, or you can call it a mockup. When we talk about UI design or development, we always talk about wireframe like this, a mockup like this, a transition, a transition graph, a transition map from where the designer will write from which page to which page. If you click on my profile, you go to gallery. If you click on a single item in the gallery, you go to my post. If you click on edit profile, you go to a page called edit profile, and so on. Well, let's summarize this UI into several insights, such as, first of all, as you can see, the UI phases or components are totally not independent. It's all relies on each other and interact with each other in a very close way. They transition from one component or one phase to another are done based on an action, a user actions, which in fact is actually event trigger, like on click is on click event, on change is on change event, and so on. And that's why when we talk about building user interface, we're talking about building user flow, or we're talking about building user diagram or user trees. And what is trees? It's actually building graphs. And what is graphs? It's state machine. State machines is used everywhere. Why so? Well, first of all, you can see these are the state machines: promise, async, await, callback, observable, all of them. But not all of them are designed for handling user interface, right? So that's why we have XState. Well, our main topic, yay, finally. So XState is an open source JavaScript and TypeScript support library package for handling state machine and state charts for the user interface. To be short, state machine and state chart for modern web. For Vue, Svelte, and React. A lot. Well, to be short, it's this kind of state management for UI component. So they have a very good website, very detailed with all the tutorial, recipe, and every detailed API step by step. So what do they bring us? The library provides a set of API to create a machine, a state machine, and then interpret or get service, a machine service instance from the state machine we created, and then execute the instance according to our configuration, and then allow user to manage a whole system of state machines, whether it's in nested state machines or it's a parallel state machine. It doesn't really matter. Some other main API we're talking about is machines, transitions, event, action, and state. States are the points where your application, your UI is standing. Machine is a set of states that can transition or can communicate with each other, can move from one to another due to some transition map, okay? And the transition map is created, the transition defines where the next state is, and the next state is triggered by an event. And of course, an event, it actually cause the state machine to move, and also it's include an actions that is one-time actions to trigger when the event is fired. Okay, so our previous example of the fetch will be something like to in X state will be something like this. Now we will define a machine with one idle state, which is initial. And then we define the state. We define the idle state, which we have an event called fetch. And on fetch, we will move to loading state. Loading state, we have two events, result or reject. On result, we go to success, and this is the final. On failure, we go to retry. When we go to loading on the event retry, and then we can add some context to calculate and to manage the number of retry if we want. So far, so good. Okay, so we can hold, we technically already build our own machine to handle the fetch with 4 states. Now, the next question, how do we going to do state this machine, like create a state machine in Vue? Well, we can use the normal xstate package, or we can use the xstate/Vue. This is a package dedicated by Vue, which provide additional hooks similar to React hooks, and with allowing to composition APIs. So it will allow you to start and writing applications and much more straightforward. But don't worry, if you're using Vue 2, it's still working on with Vue 2, which is a great thing. So let's take a look on the example, a very simple example. We have toggle component, which only have 2 states, inactive or active. So initially, it will have inactive state. And then on toggle event, we will move to active state. And on active state, on toggle event, we'll move back to inactive. Simple, right? To write it in X state, we just need to import the state machine from the X state, write a machine, give it an initial state, inactive, define the 2 state, inactive with toggle, go to active, and vice versa. And that's it. We have the state. But yeah, you are pretty bored by now because we just looking at code. There's nothing fun there. Seeing code is not fun. So let's do a real coding, shall we? Okay, I hope I won't mess it up. Okay, here we go. So just wrap. So I have an image component. I have a toggle button. Sorry, don't worry about the image. So we have a toggle button. And in the toggle button, we just have a span with take the state to have the state, and we just change the background and the indicator. And how does it look? Let's say we will have, this is how it looks. It's very simple. It says go up, go down, and that's it. So we're using the composition API, which means we have a state here, which we're using the ref to put with the value of fail space in the beginning. And then we will have a toggle button, which what it does, it just change the value and update the value, and that's it. And of course, we have the compute value to change the CSS style. How are we going to change it? Okay, let's go. So we don't need this one. Oh. Wait. Right. So let's just move this. Okay, so now we don't need, okay. So we don't need this one anymore. So all we need to do, we create a new state. Oh, first of all, I'm sorry. First of all, we need to define the toggle, which we're going to go define the toggle in the machine with the toggle code, the toggle machine with the code that we're just talking about, but a little bit of change because here I want to define specific the target. And then I will define the actions in addition when the event is triggered, which means on action, when the event is triggered, I want to change the background to the different background, and I want to change the indicator to with the new CSS styling, and so on. Same thing with active. And how, in order to use this, I'll just go here and start writing. I want to create a service from that, which means I need to interpret the machine to get a service. So toggle machine, so on. And now I want to, I need to assign the toggle, which means I need to make sure that when I create it, I do toggle the send, which is toggle. When I click on toggle, I want it to send the event toggle. Okay, but that's not finished yet. We need to make sure that the machine is updated, because sorry, not like this. Yeah. And so after I get the service, I need to set the initial state, the local state of the component, which is I'm using this, and I'm using ref, and I put the service initial state. Good, right? But in order for me to, this is just creating the ref, the first initial value of the local state with the initial state. When I want to update the local state here, I need to make sure that that state is update on transition, which means we need on transition, and on transition receive a new state, and then we can say we can put the state value, update the state value to new state. Awesome. And we can also console log the new state just to see how it works. And that's it. And here, I don't need the background state, and I don't need this anymore because I already have the context. So now I can just do state, and then context, and then background. Okay. Similarly, I do state, context indicator, and I should be working. Let's just make sure that it's working. Oh, no. Toggle machine set is not a function. Okay. So let's see, toggle machine. Oh, no, I cannot just do a toggle machine. I need to use the service, not the toggle machine. So I'm doing the service, and now I'm just restart. Now let's do it. Okay, it doesn't work. So let's say I probably forgot. I think it should be stay. I probably, no. So let's just go to XStay and go to XStay, and I want to see how I'm going to update it. So let's go to the updated and go to tutorial. No, that's good. And let's do state and transitions type. On transition, I guess. So it's on transition, and then we can do okay, I have no idea, but let me choose to do recipe. Oh, tutorial views. Yeah. So let's say if I have this transition and current is, yeah, so state. So it should be already okay. So here I'm just, the value is the state. So let's just go back here and just do it again and see how it's working. Yeah, it's working. Okay. And let's take a look on the toggle to make sure I'm, oh, so it should be background indicator. So state context background, state context indicator. No problem. And with state value. Okay, let's say first for that, I have this one. Let's say new state on transition, storage service. There was a send toggle. So I was right. Why didn't it work? State of value, save. Okay. So let's just copy this code just for the sake of it. I may have here, but you get the idea. So it should work just like that. And now I'll just do it again. And now it works. You can see I have the state here and we have a history. Also, if we change from one to another, then we have the history value of the previous state and also all the other information. Cool. Now how I'm going to do it with the X-state view. So first of all, we're going to have a service which we can define in the location way. We can reuse it and other component can access it, which we use the use service is the hook from X-state view that we will write a function called use toggle machine would return the use service where we turn on this, we get interpret the service from the toggle machine and we start the service also. So now here, all I need to do is just to remove. So just to make sure that I don't need this one, all I need is to get this from use toggle machine like this. And the use toggle machine, it return the service, return two things, state and send. It's a similar concept like update state in React, use state in React, where you get one state and you get the function to update the state. So here we don't need this anymore, and we just need to make sure that the const toggle equal and to send. And then we put toggle. Okay, and that should be it. Oi. Okay, I'm sorry, I need to remove it. I know. Now it should work. And then now you can see, now it works. Yeah, okay. And now let's think how much things do we have to clean up. We clean up all of this and we clean up all of this. Awesome. So now our code is just this much. And we can also try to print it out from other component. Let's say in app, I want to print it out. I'm using the toggle machine here. And then I have the display for the toggle mode. And then I can see toggle active and active. And that's it. Great. Cool. Okay, so far so good, right? It was just an example where we can see how X-state work and how easy to set it up. So what's the advantage of the X-state? Well, first of all, you have a very clear view, visual clear view of the code flow. And then you can, because everything is laid out as graphs and everything is state and event and one component connect to another through state and through events. So we can actually reuse the code and we can actually make sure that we have enough test coverage, because whenever we add another state, we just need to test that state and the connection between any other state that connect directly to this state. We don't need to test anything else. So we can make sure that our test is very precise. We don't break anything, and we can also easily to spot bugs and debug. And code scalability and maintenance is awesome because we're easy to see, easy to understand, easy to maintain. And because it's a map, it's the transition map, it's the graphs, you can really see how you can design and plan this design and plan your code ahead. So it's better code design for us. So if you really want to check it out, which I totally recommend you to do so because I love X-Day very much, I would suggest, first of all, try to check out the doc site because they have a very nice visualizer. Like here, as you can see, they even have a visualizer and some example of the definition, the state. And here I copy the state, the toggle state machine that we create before. So let's say toggle machine toggle. Okay, Then we have toggle and on. This one is from the code we put before. One, we have it, and you can see here you have an active. You click on the toggle, it will move to loading. You click on load, it will move to active. Oh, this is because I added another function. But if we remove this and we update, we will go to active. Okay. Then we have only two states. Inactive, we toggle, we move to active, and we toggle up, we move to inactive. And we can also modify the state, you can add more state, you can remove state, and it will lay out for you to know exactly where you do the wrong things. And not only that, you can also see the state here, the action here, the children. And in the event, you can do a toggle. You can do a toggle event, you send it, and then you can view automatically what's going on. It's very interactive, and I super recommend you to try it out. Other than that, we have a Vue community and X-State community, a very active, very good. And you can also read the documentation or some articles about how to build the whole entire UI component library with X-State. Very nice to see, or some other documents specifically on Vue. And totally recommend it. I love it. I really, really love it. It requires quite a learning curve because you really need to change the habits of how you decide to work with how you to decide how your code looks like, rather than jump in and write code. You need to sit down, plan ahead what state you have, and working from there. But it's really good. It's helped you to write better code. Just before we finish, my name is Maya, and I'm a senior software engineer. I'm a co-maintainer of Storefront UI with component UI library. I'm also an ambassador for Nuxt. I'm a Google developer expert on web performance, and I'm also a Vue.js organizer. I like to write about, talk about front-end development and web development in general. And feel free to follow me or to be in contact with me on GitHub, on Twitter, and Maya SHAVIN, and my website, mayashavin.com. And that's it. The final thing is, don't start coding. Plan modeling your state, your component, your features, and then develop from there. That will save you tons of time in later on in refactoring, on trying to fix bugs, trying to find the bug. And you can check out my sample code in the GitHub link over here. And thank you again for joining my talk. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.